In the dry High Plains region, many feed crops draw water from the Ogallala Aquifer, which is now losing water faster than it can be replenished. Mike Callicrate, a small cattle rancher in this area, broke down the relationship between water, corn, and industrial meat.
It takes about 2,500 gallons of water to produce a bushel of corn. And if an animal eats 50 bushels of corn in its time in the feedlot, we're looking at about 125,000 gallons of water per animal under the industrial model.
So when it comes to those industrial scale feedlots, the majority of the water that they're using actually goes into producing the corn?
That's correct. And the reason that JBS has a big feedlot at Yuma, Colorado is because there's water. And they don't pay one dime for that water. And they pay below the cost of production of that corn. The corn is the cheapest thing that we can feed because we buy it below cost of production. The water is subsidizing that operation.
So with free water and cheap corn, the price of mass-produced beef is kept artificially low.
The question is, how much of the Ogallala Aquifer do we need to support an industrial model or any model as far as that goes? And if we are so foolish as to let that precious resource run out, that's a tragedy.
Mike showed us the scale of land and water used by the giant meat producers here.
So we're just flying over Yuma County in Colorado. This is one of the huge scale feedlots. You've got 100,000 cattle in this one feedlot down here. Is this all corn down here, these circular?
Yes, basically all the circles that you're seeing here are corn.
That's a lot of cornfields.
Everywhere you see a circle is pumping water. I think we have to have a true cost accounting going into these production models. The reason that these big companies can do what they do is because they've got the power to externalize so many of their costs, whether it's water, whether it's the pollution of the soil with the overuse of chemicals in the production of the crops, environmental damage. That's how we're able to get a dollar burger at McDonald's. And we're not thinking about the future. We're only thinking about the short term.
We are investigating a growing controversy in western Arizona that could lead to a reckoning over scarce water supplies. You may be surprised to learn that farms in that desert region are growing one of the most water-intensive crops there is, alfalfa, and they're doing it in an area where there is a shortage of available water. Some farms are foreign-owned, and they are shipping the crop overseas to Saudi Arabia. Amid a backlash, the state legislature is now considering a ban on most foreign-owned farms. Senior national and environmental correspondent Ben Tracy has our story.
Just outside of a western Arizona town called Hope.
And as you can see, there's no water.
Cattle rancher Brad Mead is finding it hard not to lose his.
This was your well.
This was my well.
And now you got nothing.
Nothing but dust. You can toss a rock in it, it's gone.
He then took us here.
This is the edge of your land here?
Yeah.
To show us his neighbor's land. He claims they've used so much water that his well went dry.
And that's all Fondamontes.
All of that green over there.
That green is alfalfa, one of the most water-intensive crops. It's used as cattle feed and being grown on these massive farms in the Arizona desert by Fondamonte, which is owned by one of the largest dairy companies in Saudi Arabia.
So when you look out there and you see all that green, what do you think?
I see money leaving America. I see water getting depleted.
It makes me very angry because
La Paz County Supervisor Holly Irwin has been sounding the alarm about these foreign-owned farms since they began operating here in 2015.
Why would a company from Saudi Arabia be growing alfalfa in the Arizona desert?
because they've depleted their natural resource over there. So now they're here.
It's illegal to grow alfalfa in Saudi Arabia because it takes too much water. So Fondamonte bought vast tracts of desert in western Arizona on top of a massive groundwater aquifer, in part because there are no regulations on how much water can be pumped out of the ground.
So anybody can come out here and buy or lease land, and if you can put a well in and you can find water, you can take it.
That's right.
As climate change fuels devastating droughts, Arizona and its rapidly growing cities are facing drastic cuts to their surface water supply from the critically low Colorado River system.
We cannot afford to give our water away, frankly, to anyone, let alone the Saudis, for free.
Chris Mays is Arizona's newly elected Attorney General. As we talked to her at one of Fondamante's farms, we saw a series of Fondamonte trucks hauling dried alfalfa off the property and down this dirt road. They ship it back to the Middle East to feed cattle.
So cows in Saudi Arabia are essentially drinking Arizona water.
Correct. These pumps are pumping water out of the ground that belongs to the state of Arizona, and essentially it's being exported to Saudi Arabia.
Fondamonte declined our request for an interview or statement, but what it's doing here is not illegal. In fact, the state of Arizona itself is renting this particular piece of land to Fondamonte for just $25 an acre. It can then pump unlimited amounts of groundwater for essentially no cost.
There's nothing to say except that's insane.
So if this is so obviously insane, how did this happen?
It's a great question.
CBS News obtained copies of several land leases dating back to 2014 that give Fondamonte rights to more than 6,000 acres of state-owned land and the groundwater that comes with it. The leases are signed by Arizona's State Land Department. We asked the department why it granted the leases, but it did not respond to our multiple requests for comment. Most state officials in charge when the leases were signed are no longer in office.
It is a scandal that the state of Arizona allowed this to happen.
The state doesn't even know exactly how much water the foreign farms are using.
Put an end to these sweetheart water deals.
Attorney General Mays, a Democrat, made canceling these leases a centerpiece of her recent campaign.
So we'll go see some land.
She took us on a state-owned plane to see the farms from the air.
I mean, that is a lot of green down there.
Using millions upon millions of gallons of precious groundwater.
She says canceling the leases is an urgent concern because groundwater in this valley is supposed to be the state's emergency water supply during a water crisis.
This is water that Phoenix is about to need. We are on the cusp of a potential water disaster in the state of Arizona.
How concerned are you about the future out here?
I'm concerned.
Rancher Brad Mead sees a water reckoning coming and hopes the punchline on the way out of town doesn't become a prophecy.
You got to have hope and faith, otherwise we're all doomed, right?
For CBS Mornings, I'm Ben Tracy in Hope, Arizona.